The cold metal floor of the Kithra transport ship vibrated under Captain Velthok's feet as he stared out at the dying stars beyond the viewport. His daughter Kirisin sat curled in the corner, her twisted spine making it hard for her to find comfort in the hard seats. Her skin showed the mottled patterns that marked all Kithra children born in the last 50 years. The patterns looked like dark rivers flowing across pale stone, but to the rest of the galaxy, they were signs of a cursed race. "Father, are you sure the humans will help us?" Kirisin asked, her voice barely above a whisper. At 12 years old, she had already learned to speak quietly. Loud voices drew attention, and attention from other species usually meant fear and disgust. Velthok knelt beside his daughter, careful not to tower over her with his own deformed frame. His left arm was shorter than his right, ending in fingers that had grown together into claw-like appendages. "I don't know, little star. But we have tried everyone else." Elder Noxera shuffled over from the pilot section, his ancient body showing the worst of their species' genetic problems. His legs were bent at unnatural angles, forcing him to walk with a strange rolling gait. The other species called it the Kithra shuffle, and they said it with the same tone they might use for a disease. "The Zelani turned us away without even letting us land," Noxera said, settling onto a bench with obvious pain. "The Moravik Confederacy told us our children were biological hazards. Even the peaceful Ethany refused to see our delegation." Around them, 20 other Kithra sat in similar positions of resignation. Parents held children whose bodies curved in ways that made simple movement difficult. Some of the younger ones had eyes that glowed with a soft inner light, beautiful in the dim ship but terrifying to those who didn't understand. Others had skin that felt rough like tree bark, or limbs that had grown in unexpected ways. "The humans are new to the Galactic Council," said Yoriketh, a mother holding her twin sons. Both boys had been born with arms that branched like tree limbs, making it impossible for them to use standard tools. "Maybe they haven't learned it to hate us yet." Velthok looked through the ship's small porthole at the stars streaming past. Somewhere out there was Kithra Prime, their homeworld that grew more poisonous each year. The radiation storms were getting worse, and their cities were crumbling. Their people were dying not just from their genetic problems, but from simple starvation. No other species would trade with them. No one would sell them food or medicine or the basic supplies needed to maintain their failing technology. "What will we tell them?" asked young Mordex, whose question came out slurred because his jaw had grown incorrectly. "What reason can we give them to help us when no one else will?" The ship's communication system crackled to life. "Captain Velthok to the bridge," came the pilot's voice. "We're approaching human space." Velthok made his way to the front of the ship, stepping carefully around the other passengers. Through the main viewport, he could see the human colony world of New Terra growing larger. It looked green and blue, with white clouds swirling across its surface. It looked alive in a way that Kithra Prime no longer did. "They've given us permission to land," the pilot reported. "No questions asked. No demands to see medical certificates or genetic screenings." This was unusual. Every other species required extensive documentation about Kithra genetic status before allowing them to approach. Most demanded proof that they weren't carrying diseases, even though Kithra genetic problems weren't contagious. "Did they say anything else?" Velthok asked. "Just that their medical teams are standing by, and they've prepared quarters for the children." Elder Noxera had followed Velthok to the bridge. "Medical teams? Not security forces." "That's what they said." The two Kithra exchanged glances. Security forces were what they usually faced. Armed guards who made sure they didn't get too close to the healthy populations of other worlds. As New Terra grew larger in their view, Velthok thought about the long journey that had brought them here. They had spent their life savings on this trip, pooling resources from across their dying world. This was their last chance. If the humans turned them away like everyone else, there would be nowhere left to go. Kirisin appeared at his side, moving carefully with her twisted spine. "Father, look. The planet has so many colors." She was right. After years on their gray, radiation-blasted homeworld, the vibrant blues and greens of New Terra seemed almost magical. But Velthok tried not to let hope grow too strong in his chest. Hope had been crushed too many times before. "Remember," he said to everyone on the ship, "speak quietly and move slowly. Don't make any sudden gestures. Keep the children close and don't let them touch anything." These were the rules they had learned for surviving contact with other species. Rules that kept the fear and disgust to a minimum. The ship touched down on the landing platform with a gentle bump. Through the viewports, they could see figures moving toward them. But something was different. Instead of the usual array of weapons and protective suits, The humans approaching their ship carried what looked like medical supplies and blankets. Velthok took a deep breath and prepared to open the ship's door, not knowing that this moment would change everything for his people forever. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss, and Captain Velthok stepped onto the landing platform of New Terra. He had prepared himself for the usual reaction, the step backward, the look of disgust, maybe even weapons being raised. Instead, a human woman with kind eyes and dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail walked straight toward him. "Captain Velthok," she asked through a small translation device clipped to her shirt. "I'm Dr. Hannah Kim. Welcome to New Terra." Velthok stood frozen. No one had ever walked directly toward a Kithra leader before. Other species usually kept their distance, speaking through intermediaries or communication screens. "Your message said you had children who needed medical help," Dr. Kim continued. "We've prepared our medical center. Would you like to bring them there first, before we talk about anything else?" Behind Velthok, Elder Noxere whispered in disbelief, "She wants to help the children first." More humans appeared around the landing platform, but none carried weapons. Instead, they held soft blankets, containers of what looked like food, and medical supplies. A tall man in a military uniform approached, but his hands were empty and his face showed no fear. "I'm Colonel Taiwu Park," the man said, giving a small bow that somehow managed to show respect despite Velthok's twisted frame. "We've set up temporary housing for your people. Nothing fancy, but it's warm and clean." Kirisin peered out from behind her father, her glowing eyes wide with curiosity. One of the human medical staff, a young woman named Sujin, noticed her and knelt down to the girl's eye level. "Hello there," Sujin said gently. "What's your name?" "Kirisin," the girl whispered, then quickly looked down at her feet as she had been taught to do. "That's a beautiful name. I'm Sujin. Would you like to see the room we made for you? It has blue walls because blue is my favorite color. What's yours?" Kirisin looked up in surprise. No adult from another species had ever asked her about favorite colors before. "Blue," she said, so quietly it was almost inaudible. "Really? Then you'll love your room." As more Kithara children emerged from the ship, the humans continued to approach them without fear. Young Mordex, whose jaw made it hard for him to speak clearly, found himself talking to a human boy about his age named Minutho. "What happened to your face?" Minutho asked with the directness that only children possess. Mordex tensed, waiting for the usual reaction of fear or disgust. Instead, Minutho just waited patiently for an answer. "I was born this way," Mordex said through his translator. "Oh. Does it hurt?" "Sometimes. My sister was born with one leg shorter than the other. She says it hurts sometimes too, but she can still run really fast. Want to see our playground later?" Yoriketh watched in amazement as her twin sons, Kextun and Zevtun with their branching arms, were surrounded by curious human children who seemed fascinated rather than frightened by their unusual limbs. "How do you pick things up?" asked a human girl named Yijin, studying Kextun's tree-like arms with scientific interest. Without thinking, Kextun demonstrated how his multiple finger branches could wrap around objects from different angles, actually giving him a stronger grip than normal hands. The human children clapped in appreciation. "That's so cool. Can you climb trees really well?" For the first time in years, Kextun smiled. Dr. Kim led the adult Kithara toward the medical center, a clean white building with large windows that let in natural light. "Would like to do some basic health checks on everyone, especially the children. Nothing invasive, just making sure everyone is comfortable and healthy." "You're not afraid of contamination?" Elder Noxere asked, still struggling to believe what he was seeing. "Afraid of what?" Dr. Kim looked genuinely confused. "Your message mentioned genetic differences, not contagious diseases. Besides, our preliminary scans of your ship showed normal biological signatures. You're just people who look different from us." "Just people." Velthok had to pause and lean against a wall for a moment. When was the last time anyone had called the Kithara just people? Inside the medical center, the examination rooms had been modified with adjustable beds and equipment that could accommodate different body shapes. Dr. Kim began her examinations with gentle efficiency, taking readings and asking questions about pain levels and mobility. "Fascinating," she murmured while looking at readings from Kirisin's scan. "Your bone density is actually higher than baseline human normal. And these skin patterns, they're not random at all. There's a definite structure to them." "They are hideous," Kirisin said quietly, repeating what she had heard others say about Kithara children. Dr. Kim looked shocked. "Hideous? They're beautiful. Look at this pattern here, it's like a natural artwork. And according to these readings, your skin is much better at filtering certain types of radiation than normal skin would be. As the day progressed, the Kithra found themselves in an environment they had never experienced before: acceptance. Human children played with Kithra children without fear. Human adults spoke to Kithra adults as equals. No one stared with disgust or whispered behind their backs. That evening, as they sat down to their first shared meal, Colonel Park raised his glass of water in what the translator explained was a human gesture of friendship. "To new friends," he said simply. Around the table, Kithra and humans alike raised their glasses. For the first time in generations, the Kithra felt something they had almost forgotten: they felt welcome. 3 weeks had passed since the Kithra arrived on New Terra, and Dr. Hannah Kim had barely slept. Her laboratory was filled with genetic charts, DNA samples, and holographic displays that showed complex biological structures. Every test she ran revealed something new and incredible about the Kithra people. She burst through the doors of the colony's main meeting hall, where Governor Enna Young was reviewing supply reports with her staff. Her tablet shook in her hands as she tried to catch her breath. "Governor, you need to see this right now," Dr. Kim said, her voice filled with excitement. "Everything we thought we knew about the Kithra is wrong." Governor Enna Young looked up from her papers. "What do you mean, Hannah?" "They're not sick. They're not broken. They're evolving." Dr. Kim activated the room's holographic display system, and three-dimensional images of Kithra DNA filled the air above the table. "Look at these genetic patterns. What everyone else calls deformities are actually adaptations." The door opened and Captain Velthok entered with Elder Noxera and several other Kithra adults. They had been invited to daily meetings about their people's future, another kindness they had never experienced before. "Please, sit down," Governor Enna Young said. "Dr. Kim has something important to tell us all." Dr. Kim pointed to the floating DNA structures. "Captain Velthok, when did your people's children start being born with these physical differences?" "About 60 years ago," Velthok replied. "Right after the great radiation storms began on our homeworld." "Exactly." Dr. Kim manipulated the display to show a detailed scan of Kirasin's skin. "These patterns on your daughter's skin aren't random marks. They're organized structures that can absorb and neutralize radiation that would kill most other species." Elder Noxera leaned forward in his chair. "You mean the marks that make other species fear us?" "Those same marks, yes. And look at this." The display changed to show bone structures. "Your modified bone growth doesn't make you weaker. It distributes weight and stress in ways that let you survive in high-gravity environments. Most species would be crushed by the conditions you can handle easily." Young scientist Boram joined the presentation, pulling up additional data. "The eye changes that make Kithra children's eyes glow? Those aren't just cosmetic differences. You can see light spectrums that are invisible to us. You can navigate in darkness, see through radiation clouds, and detect energy sources that our best instruments can barely measure." Kirasin, who had been quietly playing with her human friend Yijin in the corner, looked up with interest. "Is that why I can see the pretty colors around the power generators that the grown-ups can't see?" Dr. Kim's eyes widened. "You can see energy fields around our generators?" "Yes. They make rainbow patterns. I thought everyone could see them." The adults in the room exchanged amazed looks. The colony's power systems were completely shielded, invisible even to their most sensitive detection equipment. "The arm and leg differences that affect mobility," Dr. Kim continued, "they're not disabilities either. Mordex, can you show us how you use your modified jaw structure?" The young Kithra who struggled with speech stepped forward shyly. At Dr. Kim's encouragement, he opened his mouth and demonstrated how his changed jaw could create a wide range of sounds that the human translator was still learning to interpret. "He's not speaking incorrectly," Boram explained. "He's speaking in frequencies and tones that carry more information than normal speech. It's like he has a natural communication system that works better in environments with interference." Yoriketha's twin sons, Kextun and Zevtun, were called forward to demonstrate their branching arms. What had looked like a cruel twist of genetics turned out to be an incredible adaptation. They could manipulate multiple tools at once, climb surfaces that would be impossible for normal hands, and grip objects with strength that far exceeded what their size suggested. "Your people aren't dying out," Dr. Kim said, her voice filled with wonder. "You're becoming something new. Something that can survive in places where no other known species could live." Captain Velthok stared at the genetic displays floating in the air. "But why do the other species see us as cursed? Why do they fear us?" Governor Enna Young answered this time. Because they are looking at what you're not, instead of what you are. They see you as broken versions of what they expect, instead of seeing you as successful versions of something entirely new. Dr. Kim nodded. The galaxy is full of worlds that are too dangerous for most species to colonize. Worlds with high radiation, unusual gravity, energy storms that interfere with normal biology. Your people could not just survive in those places, you could thrive there. That evening, as the sun set over New Terra, Kirisin sat with her father by the window of their temporary home. For the first time in her life, she wasn't trying to hide her glowing eyes or cover the patterns on her skin. Father, does this mean we're not broken? Velthok put his shorter arm around his daughter's curved shoulders. No, little star. It means we're exactly what we're supposed to be. Outside their window, human and Kithra children played together in the fading light. The Kithra children moved differently, saw differently, and thought differently than their human friends. But for the first time, those differences were seen as gifts instead of curses. The galaxy had called them failures, but the humans had revealed the truth. They were pioneers of a new kind of life, adapted for challenges that no other species could face. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called with unusual urgency. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive circular chamber, their various forms creating a sea of different shapes, colors, and sizes. At the center of it all, Ambassador G1 sat calmly at the human delegation's table, her hands folded peacefully despite the angry voices surrounding her. High Counselor Vrexton, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. The human colony of New Terra has been harboring the Kithra contamination for over 2 months, he announced, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's translation systems. This cannot be allowed to continue. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. The Moravik representative, a being that looked like a walking tree with glowing amber sap, leaned forward. The Kithra genetic instability could spread to other species. They must be isolated immediately. Isolated. G1 stood up, her voice cutting through the noise. These are people we're talking about, not a disease. Counselor Zethmar from the Zelani Collective spoke next, her blue-scaled face twisted with disgust. People? Look at them. Their children are born twisted and broken. They are nature's mistake, and the humans are foolish to waste resources on them. The chamber erupted in supporting voices. Species after species voiced their agreement that the Kithra were a danger, a waste of space, a genetic dead end that should be allowed to fade away quietly. Ambassador G1 waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. With respect, esteemed counselors, I need to make something very clear. As of today, the Kithra are no longer seeking asylum or temporary refuge. They are now full citizens of the Human Colonial Alliance. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the usual background humming of translation devices seemed to pause. You cannot claim kinship with the cursed, Vrexton said, his 4 arms gesturing in what his species considered a sign of disbelief. We don't see them as cursed, G1 replied firmly. We see them as family. And humans don't abandon family. Back on New Terra, the news of the Galactic Council's emergency session had reached the colony within hours. Captain Velthok found himself standing in Governor Enyoung's office, feeling lost and confused. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. We can leave. We can find somewhere else to go. Governor Enyoung shook her head. Where would you go, Velthok? Every other species in the galaxy has already turned you away. Besides, you're not going anywhere. This is your home now. But the Council will punish you for helping us. They might cut off trade, or refuse to share technology, or... Let them try, interrupted Colonel Taiwu Park from his seat near the window. We've been managing just fine on our own. We don't need their approval to do what's right. Dr. Hannah Kim entered the office carrying her ever-present tablet full of research data. The construction teams have finished surveying the northern continent. We can start building the joint settlements next month. Joint settlements? Elder Noxeare asked. Cities designed for both humans and Kithra, Dr. Kim explained. Homes that work for your body shapes, workplaces that take advantage of your abilities, schools where all our children can learn together. Through the office windows, they could see the colony's main square where human and Kithra families had gathered for their daily community meal. Kirisin was teaching a group of human children how to see the energy patterns around the street lights, while her human friend Yijin showed Kithra children how to braid flowers into decorative chains. Mordex had discovered that his modified jaw could create sound frequencies that helped the colony's communication systems work better over long distances. The human engineers were fascinated and had asked him to help design new equipment. For the first time in his life, his differences made him valuable instead of unwanted. Yoriketha's twin sons had found work with the construction teams, where their branching arms could reach into spaces and manipulate tools in ways that made building projects much easier. The human workers had nicknamed them the Miracle Twins, and treated them like heroes. "Why are you doing this?" Captain Velthok asked, his voice heavy with emotion. "Your people could live peaceful lives without the trouble we bring." Governor Young walked over to the window and looked out at the mixed groups of children playing in the square. "Do you see those kids out there? The human ones and the Kithra ones?" Velthok nodded. "Yesterday, my daughter Minute came home crying because some of the older human kids from the outer settlements were saying mean things about her Kithra friends. So you know what she did? She organized all the kids in her class, human and Kithra together, to make friendship bracelets for everyone. She said that anyone who was mean to her Kithra friends was being mean to her family." She turned back to face Velthok. 8-year-old children understand what the Galactic Council doesn't. When you choose to care about someone, when you choose to stand with them and help them grow, that makes them family. It doesn't matter what they look like or where they come from. That night, as both species families gathered for the evening meal, Ambassador G1's words from the Galactic Council session were broadcast to the colony. When the transmission ended, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then Colonel Park stood up and raised his glass. "To the newest members of our family," he said simply. Around the room, humans and Kithra alike raised their glasses, and for the first time in their species' history, the Kithra truly understood what it meant to belong somewhere. The warning sirens across New Terra began wailing at dawn, their harsh sound cutting through the peaceful morning air. In the colony's command center, Admiral So-Young stared at the tactical display showing 200 enemy warships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The hegemony had come to finish what the Galactic Council had started. "Admiral, incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Jinwoo, his young face pale with worry. The main screen flickered to life, showing the cold features of Hegemony Fleet Commander Thexulos. His species looked like walking metal sculptures, with silver skin and red glowing eyes that showed no emotion. "Human colonists of New Terra," the commander's voice came through with mechanical precision, "you are harboring genetic aberrance in violation of galactic health protocols. Surrender all Kithra individuals immediately, or face total elimination." Admiral So-Young stepped forward, her military uniform pressed and clean despite the early hour. "This is Admiral So-Young of the New Terra Defense Force. The people you call aberrants are citizens of this world. We will not surrender our family to you." "You have 1 hour to comply," Thexulos replied coldly, and the transmission ended. In the residential areas, families were quickly gathering their emergency supplies. But instead of the panic that might be expected, there was a calm determination in the air. Human parents helped Kithra children pack their belongings, while Kithra adults assisted human families with their own preparations. Captain Velthok found Admiral So-Young in the military hangar, where pilots were preparing the colony's small defense fleet. The odds were hopeless. New Terra had only 37 ships against the hegemony's massive armada. "Admiral, let us go," Velthok said quietly. "My people can take our ship and leave. There's no reason for humans to die for us." So-Young turned to face him, her expression firm but kind. "Velthok, do you have children?" "Yes, my daughter Kirisin." "Would you abandon her if someone told you she was defective and had to be destroyed?" "Never." "Then you understand why we're staying. You're not guests here anymore. You're family." Near the landing platforms, Kirisin was helping load civilians into transport ships that would take them to underground shelters. Her glowing eyes could see energy patterns that helped the evacuation teams work more efficiently in the dim morning light. "Kira, come on," called her human friend Yijin. "My mom says we need to get to the shelter." "Wait," Kirisin said, pointing to a transport that was struggling with its engines. "That ship has a power leak. I can see the energy bleeding out from here." Human maintenance worker Sung Minute looked where she was pointing and quickly found the problem that his instruments had missed. "You saved that ship from exploding during takeoff," he told her with amazement. As the hour deadline approached, the colony's defense ships took their positions. Admiral So-Young was in the lead fighter, with Captain Velthok beside her as co-pilot. Behind them flew a mixed formation of human and Kithra pilots working together. "All ships, this is Admiral So-Young," she broadcast on the general frequency. "Remember, we're not just defending territory today. We're defending the idea that different kinds of people can choose to be family." The Hegemony fleet began its attack with devastating weapon fire. The human ships, faster and more maneuverable, darted between the massive enemy vessels like small birds attacking eagles. But they were still outnumbered more than 5-1. That's when the Kithra pilots did something that shocked everyone watching. Instead of avoiding the radiation-heavy areas around the battle, they flew directly into them. The deadly energy fields that would have killed human pilots or disabled their ships had no effect on the Kithra. Kirisin, now 24 and serving as a fighter pilot, guided her specially modified ship through a radiation storm so intense it looked like purple lightning. Her enhanced eyes could track enemy movements through the blinding energy, while her radiation-resistant body remained unaffected. "I've got 3 hegemony ships hiding in the storm," she reported calmly. "They think they're safe in here." Her ship emerged from the radiation cloud behind the enemy vessels, catching them completely by surprise. Within minutes, all 3 were destroyed. Across the battlefield, other Kithra pilots were using their unique abilities in ways the hegemony had never expected. Mordex used his modified vocal abilities to create sonic disruptions that interfered with enemy communications. The twin brothers Kextun and Zevtun piloted ships with special controls designed for their branching arms, allowing them to operate weapons and navigation systems simultaneously with incredible precision. The turning point came when Fleet Commander Thexulos deployed the hegemony's ultimate weapon, a massive radiation bomb designed to sterilize the entire planet's surface. "All ships, emergency retreat," Admiral Soyoung ordered. "Get clear of the planet." But the Kithra ships didn't retreat. Instead, they formed a protective formation around New Terra and activated every energy absorption system their people had developed. The radiation bomb exploded in a burst of deadly energy that should have killed everything on the planet's surface. Instead, the Kithra ships absorbed the massive energy discharge, converting it into harmless light that spread across the sky like a beautiful aurora. With their ultimate weapon neutralized and their fleet now exposed and confused, the hegemony forces found themselves facing a coordinated attack from human tactical brilliance and Kithra adaptive abilities working as one. Within hours, the surviving enemy ships were retreating into hyperspace. That evening, as families emerged from the shelters to see their world saved, Admiral Soyoung found Captain Velthok standing in the colony square, looking up at the colorful lights still dancing across the sky from the absorbed radiation. "Thank you," she said simply. Velthok smiled, watching human and Kithra children run together through the square, playing and laughing as if the morning's battle had been nothing more than a bad dream. "No," he replied. "Thank you for showing the galaxy that family isn't about what you look like. It's about who chooses to stand with you when everything else falls apart."